Let's start off with the Arizona Diamondbacks, and I enjoyed their draft. Their first 3 picks here have good upside, and they got a lot of pitching in this class. They only have 2 pitchers in their system with at least a 45 grade, so much needed pitching added to their organization. But getting back to the first 3 picks, really like these picks overall. Slade Caldwell, their first pick at number 29. I'm a big Caldwell fan. Sure, a bit undersized at 5'9", but we're seeing so many guys that are, undersized playing well in the major leagues today. But I enjoy a lot about him. A good hit tool combined with good athleticism. A guy that hits to all fields. More of a line drive guy at this point, but I think someone that could add some pop as he grows older. Combine the speed there. I mean, I think you could see a guy, 15, 20 home runs a season, 40 stolen bases per year. I think that's very possible. Plays a good center field as well. I'm a big Caldwell fan, and you're probably going to be able to save a bit of money with this pick and use that for the next pick in Ryan Waldschmidt. There was talk of him, being a top 10 pick at one point, and he fell all the way to the Diamondbacks, and I think they got themselves a really good player. Had a good career at Kentucky, showed good exit velocities last year, good contact percentages. He's very disciplined at the plate as well. I think they got themselves a great hitter. When it comes to the field, not a great defender out there, was playing more left field this past season, but scouts think he could be a center fielder down the road. He's not going to have the best arm, but he's going to have the speed out there. But then they got someone like J.D. Dix as well, young shortstop prospect, has once again another good hit tool here. Not a lot of power at the moment, but 6'2", 18 years old. He's only going to grow more into that frame. I think this is a guy that could end up getting some more pop down the road. He shows some good pop right now, but the fact that he already has a good approach at the plate, makes good contact, and has the athleticism. And getting back to the pitching, I also want to mention Daniel Egan. I think there's a lot of upside here, and this is a good value pick. He was ranked 83rd overall, and they got him at number 102. Now, when you take a look, he's 6'4", big guy, so this is a guy that could definitely fill into that frame a little bit more. Already has a good fastball. He improved his velocity this past season at Presbyterian, and has a good curveball and a slider to go along with it. Yeah, maybe the changeup could use a little bit more work, but I think this is a good sneaky pickup for the D-backs. Really like this class for the Diamondbacks. Nothing incredibly flashy, but overall, I think pretty solid. Let's get my Red Sox out of the way, and in all honesty, no bias here, but I think they had a pretty interesting draft overall, highlighted by their top pick, Braden Montgomery. I think this guy could be the real deal down the road. He was projected to go in the top 10, even the top 5 at one point, and once again, the Red Sox get another birthday gift, and he falls to them at number 12. He was an absolute monster at Texas A&M last year before fracturing his ankle in the college postseason. Doesn't seem to be a problem long term. Should be good to go by spring training, but the power is off the charts with this guy. He ranked near the top of college baseball last year in exit velocity. He has power to all fields. There are some issues with the swing and miss in the zone, but the Red Sox, they've done so well with their position players over the years. I think they can get that cleaned up. Also has a great arm. He fits perfect out there for right field at Fenway Park. What was really intriguing about this draft for the Red Sox is they got much needed pitching, as expected with Craig Breslow running the show. He's completely revamped the pitching development there. They took a lot of pitching here, 14 pitchers out of the 20 picks. They took Peyton Tolley out of TCU first off. This is a guy I'm pretty excited about. Funny thing, he's 6'6", he's 250, but not a lot of velocity at this point, but he has really good extension, and I think, like I said, with the pitching development in tow in Boston now, I think they could even get some more velocity. I think there's a canvas there they can really work with, and they could end up getting themselves a really good pitcher. And then you got a few other guys here. Brandon Neely, it's up in the air whether or not he'll be a starter or a reliever, but has good action on the fastball. It's graded at a 55. Just needs to, figure some more out when it comes to the secondary pitches. And then you got a couple other guys who I think are pretty interesting. Brandon Clark, a lefty. There's a lot of projection with him, 6'4", 220, added some velocity this past year, has a 60 grade on the fastball, has a decent curveball to go along with it. And then you got someone like a Brady Tigert, where not a lot of velocity with him, but a ton of spin on the curveball and the slider. And then when it came to the position player side of things, they added Zach Earhart, a 4th round pick. I think there could be some intrigue here. A really disciplined hitter, makes good contact, has some pop. I think this is a guy overshadowed a little bit by Carson Bench at Oklahoma State. Another guy I want to also point out is they took Will Turner in the 7th round. Funny thing with Will Turner, he was projected as the number 32 prospect for the 2025 draft. This is a guy that had a really good season a couple of years ago in college. He was expected to go pretty high, and he just had a miserable season last year. Tried some adjustments with the mechanics, and it just all fell apart for him last year. Not viewed as the same prospect as he was prior. Like I said with the Red Sox, they've done well with their position players. This is a guy who makes really good contact at the plate. He's shown pop out there. He's a good athlete. And then one more prospect to point out is Conrad Kaysen, a possible two-way player. Now, he is committed to Mississippi State, so let's see if they can get him signed. This is a really intriguing prospect. He has a good fastball on the mound. He just needs to kind of work on the other things there. But also a guy that's, shown some decent things at the plate, makes decent contact overall, has a pretty good approach at the plate, not a lot of power at the moment, but there's some intrigue. I know I kind of just rambled on a lot about that draft class, but I think it's pretty interesting, and I think deserves a bit of mention here, despite my bias. Moving on to the Baltimore Orioles, and I'm going to highlight the first two picks they made, Vance Honeycutt and Griff O'Farrell. I absolutely love these picks for the Orioles, starting with Vance Honeycutt. I think he can be a true superstar. He had an amazing season last year at North Carolina, had an OPS over 1100, 28 home runs, and 28 stolen bases. That's due to the fact that this guy is extremely athletic, and he has a ton of power from the right side, and he is a Gold Glove center fielder right now. He can go into center field as we speak and play Gold Glove defense out there. I think he can be an elite player, but the one thing that's holding him back is the hit tool, a 40 hit tool. There's chase there, there's strikeouts there, there's swing and miss there. He's really going to have to clean that up, but I think the Orioles, it's the perfect home for him in Baltimore. It's a great organization for him. They took Colton Cowser a few years ago in the first round, and this is a guy who's, had some strikeout issues throughout his professional career so far. Even this year, he's close to a 30%. Go back to 2022 in AAA, had a 30.6% strikeout percentage. So the Orioles, they can work with this, and I think they can get the most out of Vance Honeycutt. I think it's just such a great home for him. Could be an absolute steal. They got him at number 22. I think it also opens up the possibility, maybe someone like Enrique Bradfield Jr. could end up being a trade piece at some point, since they now have Vance Honeycutt in their system. Overall, though, I just really love this pick. I think it's the perfect place for him. Let's see how that goes. But I also love Griff O'Farrell. I think this is just a really solid player to add into your organization. A good hitter, good approach at the plate. He's athletic, has good baseball IQ as well, just good makeup. I think it's just a solid player to add coming out of Virginia. Like I said, a good hit tool at 55, makes a lot of contact. He's going to have some speed as well. Good arm. He can play shortstop, whether or not he stays there, second base, maybe even moves to an outfield spot. We'll see. Either way, the Orioles, they've had a good track record of drafting position players, and I think these two are going to be successful for them. I'm excited to see what they do. Moving on to the Atlanta Braves, and no surprise, they took a lot of pitching in this draft. Most notably, though, Cam Caminiti at number 24, a great value pick for them there, regarded as the top high school pitcher in this draft. Very good lefty coming out of Saguaro High School in Arizona. There's a lot to like here. There's already a lot to work with Caminiti. Has good velocity, already has a 4-pitch mix with 3 of the pitches being at least a 55. The fastball at a 60, has good action on the fastball, has a curveball to go along with it, throws a good amount of strikes. Caminiti, I think, could be the real deal down the road. Let's see. Hey, they've done well with their pitching development in the past. Max Fried, Spencer Strider, got Schwellenbach this year. You got Waldrop, who they took in last year's draft, who's been doing well in the minor leagues. I think Caminiti is a very exciting prospect for them to add. But they also got Carter Holton, another lefty out of Vanderbilt. Pretty undersized, kind of like that Marcus Stroman kind of height, 5'11". But a lot of good stuff with Carter Holton here. As you can see, has a pretty good fastball, has an excellent slider to go along with it, moves a lot in the zone there, and has a curveball and a changeup to go along with it, throws a good amount of strikes. But when it comes to the Braves draft class, the highlight is Caminiti. I'm really excited about that pick for them. Let's stay in the National League East and talk about the Nationals. Now, when they took Seaver King at number 10, I was thinking that might have been a bit of a reach, considering you had guys like Braden Montgomery, you had Cam Smith sitting there, a high school guy like Bryce Rayner, even James Tibbs was there, Trey Savage. So I thought Seaver King was a guy that was more going to go in like that 20 range, and ended up going 10. So I was like, I don't know. But then they took Caleb Lomavita with their next pick. So that makes sense to me. So they're probably going to get Seaver King on a bit of an underslot, and then Caleb Lomavita, who I think is a really good catching prospect. There, I think they'll go a bit over slot for him. When it comes to Seaver King, he's gotten comparisons to Mookie Betts. I think that's a little unfair at this point, considering how good Mookie is, but you could sort of see the similarities, right? Makes a lot of contact. A lot of it ends up being weak contact because he is pretty aggressive up there. A guy that can really hit with authority to all fields. Needs to increase that power a little bit. I do think you will see a bit of an increase over the next couple of years, but a very athletic player and plays multiple positions out in the field. There's a lot of value with Seaver King. I didn't hate the pick necessarily. I just thought it might have been a bit too soon considering some other guys that were still on the board. But then you get to Caleb Lomavita, a guy right now, he is a pretty solid catcher for the most part, but there's still room for improvement, but he's very athletic for a catcher, has pretty good speed overall, a guy that stole a few bases last year at California, and a guy with some pop, a pretty good hit tool, has, pretty good plate discipline for the most part, but has good pop there. So an athletic catcher with some pop, we've seen Kyber Ruiz not fully be able to get it going there, so maybe Caleb Lomavita could be an option for them down the road. But then they made a few other picks that I liked here. They got Luke Dickerson in the second round, a high school shortstop, very athletic, not really too much with a hit tool as of right now, but he's shown some good pop in high school. I'm always a fan of a guy that's got some speed, has some pop, work on that hit tool. Maybe you could end up getting a really good player. Someone like Kevin Basil, a really interesting player, a guy that doesn't have a whole lot of power, but makes a ton of contact, close to a 90% contact percentage last year in college. Now, is playing catcher, but a guy that could also play some third base because he has a good arm and, could play some outfield as well. Not fully set in stone where he ends up playing, but you're really, getting a guy here that just makes a ton of contact with the bat. And then someone like a Jackson Kent, left-hander out of Arizona, a pretty balanced lefty pitcher, pretty high floor. Overall, I like their draft class. I think it was pretty solid. Let's stay in the National League East once again and talk about the Miami Marlins. Now, I could see some people being surprised with this one. Their first pick, PJ Morlando, was a bit of a head scratcher, but you got to remember here, Peter Bendix coming over from the Rays and how well they've developed players over the past. I think he's going to bring some of that here to Miami, and I think they know what they're doing with some of these picks. They got a lot of high projection bats for this system. I think they desperately needed to have a draft like this. Let's start off with PJ Morlando. I think there's a lot of upside here. Again, this was a bit of a head scratcher in the moment, but I think it will be a bit of an underslot kind of a move. That way they can use the money for most of the other picks there in the draft. But I think there's a lot of upside. He's 6'3" at 19 years old. He's only 198. I say get a little bit more muscle onto that frame, fill out that frame a little bit more. I think you could end up getting a pretty good hitter down the road. Now, he's already a good hitter for the most part. He makes a lot of contact, consistent contact, hard contact as well, and he has a good approach to the plate. He's pretty disciplined for the most part. Now, when it comes to the power, he really shows it a lot in batting practice, but it's not fully in games at this point. And I say when he starts to get some more size there, I think that power is going to turn on eventually, maybe make a few adjustments at the plate, and I think you could end up getting a pretty good all-around hitter. Now, when it comes to, the position, he's an outfielder at the moment. He's not a whole lot of speed. He's probably going to be a corner outfielder, first baseman for the most part, but I think he could end up being a really good hitter down the road. And Carter Johnson, I love this pick. High school shortstop, gets a lot of comps, the bat at least, with Gunnar Henderson, a lefty bat with a good hit tool already shows an advanced approach at the plate, already has some pop. That's only going to get better. He's 6'2", 180 pounds. He's going to fill out into that frame a bit more, and has a good arm. He could end up moving over to third base at some point. The arm plays there. And then they got another good hitter in the third round out of Alabama. Engage Miller has a 55 hit tool. He can hit to all fields. He's very disciplined at the plate. Now, when it comes to the power, it's graded at a 50, mostly because he's just pulling for power at this point, but maybe make a couple of tweaks, maybe make a couple of adjustments, and you can end up having a complete hitter down the road. They got another guy in Peyton Green, shortstop out of Georgia Tech, has some raw power there, needs to clean up a few things. Maybe he could end up being something. And then they made another interesting pick in the 8th round in Jacob Jenkins Cower. This guy's absolutely massive. He's 6'6", a little over 200 pounds. Maybe fill out that frame a little bit more. He makes a lot of contact. A lot of it tends not to be great contact, but hey, maybe get this guy a little beefed up. Maybe you can end up adding some power to this guy. These big guys, they tend to have a lot of leverage, so maybe they could do something there. You also got a guy in Dub Gleed, third baseman out of UC Irvine, a guy that makes a lot of contact, pretty disciplined at the plate overall. Just need to add a little bit more power there, and they still added some pitching. You know they can develop pitching. They got a guy in Aiden May, right-hander out of Oregon State, good fastball, really good slider to go along with it. You know, needs a bit more there with the changeup, needs to throw some more strikes overall. But Aiden May, this is a guy where, hey, we know what they can do with their pitchers. They could definitely work with a guy like this who already has something to work with the fastball and the slider. You got a high school guy in Grant Shepherdson here, already has a good fastball and a slider, you know, but again, the Marlins, they do well with the pitching in their system. Overall, I think this Marlins draft is pretty underrated, and I think people kind of turned away from it when they went with PJ Morlando with the first pick, but there was some strategy there. But overall, I love the high upside bats that they added. Moving back to the American League East, let's talk about the Blue Jays, and they also got a birthday gift in this draft. They got Trey Savage at number 20. He was projected to go in the top 10, either 11, 12. I mean, people were thinking, no way he falls past the Mariners at number 15. They took Jurangelo Senga, and then in the end, the Blue Jays reap the benefits, and they get Savage. I really like Savage. He had a lung injury in college, but he pitched great for the most part. I'm not sure if that came into play with why he fell to them, but in the end, the Blue Jays get a very good pitcher. I would say more of a floor, maybe a little bit of ceiling, but you're getting a guy who's a big guy already, 6'4", 225. I mean, he already has good velocity. He's got 3+ pitches along with a curveball, throws a decent amount of strikes. There is a little effort in the delivery there, but in the end, I think the Blue Jays, they just get a really solid pitcher. And then they also got Cal Steven in the second round, pretty similar to Trey Savage, kind of a higher floor, a guy with pretty decent velocity, has a good changeup, a slider curveball to go along with it, so he's also got a 4-pitch mix. He throws a lot of strikes, so I think it's good for the Blue Jays to add just some high floor guys like this that could end up being in a future rotation. But then they also got Johnny King, a lefty out of high school in Florida, 3rd round pick, you know, a highly projectable guy here, 6'3", already has good velocity with a good slider to go along with it, has a changeup, could throw some more strikes, graded at a 45. But in the end, I like that they got some high floor guys and they got themselves a high projection kind of a guy. And then when it came to the position player side of things, I love the addition of Sean Keys in the 4th round out of Bucknell University. I think a sneaky good hitter, could end up being a decent player down the road. Already has a good hit tool at 55, good discipline at the plate, doesn't swing and miss, doesn't chase a whole lot, but the power, it's not quite there yet. However, he has played in the Cape Cod League before and has shown some decent pop with the wood bats. So I think they're, you know, keep your eye on Sean Keys. I think he could end up being pretty decent. In the end, I just think the Blue Jays, they did pretty solid here. Speaking of power, we got to go to the Kansas City Royals and talk about their pick of Jack Caglione at number 6, ranked number 3 on Pipeline, 5 on Baseball America. They got a guy that can absolutely do some damage down the road. Jack Caglione, he was setting records at the University of Florida, hitting home runs all over the place, has a 70 power tool. I think he could even have some more power. This guy is huge. He's 6'5", 250 pounds, a monster in the box. As he gains more experience at the pro level, I don't see why he couldn't gain any more power. Now, when you take a look at the hit tool, there are some issues with the chase rate, close to a 40% in college. I don't think that has to be a bad thing necessarily. He makes a lot of contact and he doesn't strike out all that much. You know, you think of a guy like Bryce Harper. He has a pretty high chase rate as well, and we all know how good Bryce Harper is. I'm not saying Caglione is going to be Bryce Harper, but you know, you get my point here. Caglione, I think, can be a special hitter down the road. When it comes to the pitching side of things, you know, he had the nickname, you know, College Ohtani. I don't think you're going to see a lot of pitching, you know, from Caglione. This is a guy that didn't really put up great numbers last year on the mound. I think you're going to see more of a hitter. I think they will give him a chance to be a pitcher. I definitely think they'll, you know, take a look. I think you're going to see more of that bat, though. I think that's where he's going to be really special. Look out for that. But they also made a couple other picks, too. Really like their pick of David Shields in the 2nd round. High upside lefty out of Mount Lebanon High School in Pennsylvania. Has a good slider, decent changeup, a decent velocity at this point. Throws a lot of strikes. In my opinion, I think that's pretty important for a high school pitcher, right? Throw strikes, have, you know, at least, you know, 1 or 2 decent off-speed pitches. The velocity velocity will come along. I like this pick for the Royals there. I think that was a good upside pick. But then they also got Drew Beam out of Tennessee. They just won a College World Series, their first ever. But a big guy, 6'4". I think he could even fill out that frame a little bit, just a little over 200 pounds. But a pretty balanced guy overall. You know, decent velocity, has a curve, a cutter, a pretty good changeup to go along with it. Throws a good amount of strikes as well. I think there's a canvas here where you could really build with someone like Drew Beam. But overall, I think the Royals, especially at the top of their draft, I think they did really well. Staying in the AL Central, and how could we not talk about the Cleveland Guardians? They had their first ever #1 pick in the draft, and they took the best player available in Travis Bazzana. If you're looking for a complete hitter, well, here you go. Anywhere he's played, you know, going back to Australia, the first ever #1 pick from Australia, by the way, he has just been a great player, a great hitter everywhere he's gone. Oregon State last year, he was amazing, hit over 400, 28 home runs, almost 20 stolen bases as well. Travis Bazzana is going to be the real deal. Hits to all fields with authority, has power to go along with it, has athleticism. Like I said, he stole a few bases there. He's going to move well at second base as well. You know, sure, he's probably not going to be, you know, a shortstop by any means, but a guy that's going to play a good second base overall, maybe plays in the outfield at some point too. But you're getting a great player with Travis Bazzana. Not really much to argue there. Now, it's not just Bazzana. I felt like they made some other pretty good picks too. You got Braylon Doty, a high school pitcher out of California. This is a guy who already has a good canvas to work with here. Has a good velocity, a good curveball, and a slider to go along with it. You know, changeup needs some work, but that's okay. You know, he's very young. The Guardians, they've done well with the pitching development. I thought that was a great pick. And then they also got catcher Jacob Kozar out of North Carolina State in the second round. Pretty good hitter, has some pop there. Pretty good behind the plate as well. I think that's a solid player to add to your organization. And then they also got another high school pitcher here that I think has some good upside, and Joey Oki. Big frame, 6'3" already at 18 years old, has good velocity with a really good slider, one of the better sliders in this draft, already graded at a 65. You know, reminds me of like the Jackson Jobe kind of a grade. I wouldn't say he's that high, but he has a good one. There's a lot of spin on it. Now, not much else to go along with it as of right now, but again, the Guardians, they developed their pitching really well. So yeah, sure, they had a good first pick there, but it wasn't just the first pick. They made some other solid picks in this draft as well. Staying out west, let's talk about the Colorado Rockies, and I think they did great here. They ended up getting Charlie Condon at #3, ranked #2 on Pipeline, #1 on Baseball America. Man, oh man, Charlie Condon, this guy broke out at the University of Georgia in a big way. Really reminds me of Aaron Judge, just a big guy, 6'6", has those long levers. He can create that leverage, but he combines that leverage with the strength that he has, with the bat speed, with good plate discipline as well. I think you could end up seeing, you know, sort of those characteristics of Aaron Judge, but with better plate discipline. Aaron Judge was a guy coming out of college. He had problems with strikeouts, you know, with swing and miss. Charlie Condon, not so much there, but combine that with the excellent exit velocity that he showed in college. I think you can end up getting a very special hitter here, but it's not just the hitter. You're putting him at Coors Field, for crying out loud. I mean, my goodness, could we end up seeing multiple 500-foot home runs from Charlie Condon? I'm just saying, man. But this guy, he put up historic numbers. He was putting up just ridiculous numbers. Had over a 1,500 OPS last year at the University of Georgia. There's a lot to like here. I think he has a good home in Colorado, but it wasn't just him. They got Brody Brecht with their next pick. This is a guy that was projected by some mocks out there to go in the first round. Big guy, 6'4", 235, nasty fastball slider combination. Sliders, they play well at Coors Field. I think this is just a great pick for them. He has a splitter to go along with it as well. Could he end up in the bullpen? Could he end up being, you know, a shutdown closer down the road? We'll see. I would imagine they want to, you know, try and get as much out of him as they can, you know, get him in the rotation one day. They definitely need that. They also got a pretty good hitter here in Jared Thomas out of Texas. Has a good hit tool. Not a lot of power as of right now, but hey, Coors Field, that could always help. Maybe make a couple of adjustments, and you could end up getting a pretty solid hitter here overall. I think the future is bright with Colorado. And last but not least, let's talk about the Cincinnati Reds. Now, when they took Chase Burns at number 2, I'm thinking, how did you pass on Charlie Condon? But then the rest of their draft unfolded, and I really liked this draft class for the Reds overall. You know, starting with Chase Burns. I'm making it sound like Chase Burns is a bad pick, but are you kidding me? Chase Burns, easily the top pitching prospect in this entire draft. This guy's stuff is off the charts. High-octane fastball, nasty slider to go along with it, has a curveball, good changeup to go along with it too. Could you imagine a rotation with Hunter Green, Chase Burns, Nick Lodolo? Are you kidding me? That is just nasty. And then you also added a high floor guy in Luke Holman, a guy that throws a lot of strikes, you know, has a good slider to go along with it too. Could use a bit more velocity. He is 6'4", big guy, so maybe the Reds can tap into that a little bit. You got a Tristan Smith out of Clemson, a guy that has pretty good velocity, needs to throw some more strikes, but does have a slider and a changeup to go along with it. So I think you get two pretty different profiles there that the Reds can work with. I think that's pretty exciting. But then we get to the position player side of things. And like I said, well, you know, hey, Charlie Condon, he was right there. But they did nab themselves some pretty good position players. Tyson Lewis, a very athletic shortstop coming out of high school, has a 60-run tool as of right now. Still needs to show a little bit more with the bat, but he has shown he can make pretty consistent contact for the most part. And then in the third round, they took Mike Sirota. I think this is a really interesting player. Now, Charlie Condon, there was a ton of upside there. Yeah, that's tough to pass on, but Mike Sirota, I think, has some pretty good upside too. Now, Baseball America, they had him ranked at number 5 for the 2025 draft. He was looking like a guy that could easily be a first rounder this year, you know, coming into this college season, but his numbers fell off at Northeastern. He had an OPS in 2023 at 1149, but that took a dive down to 986. As you can see, though, the on-base percentage right near 500 stayed the same. It was just the batting average and the slugging that went down. I'm guessing there were some, you know, mechanical issues going on, and his season just, you know, took a bit of a hit there. But Mike Sirota, this is a guy that I think has a good amount of projection still. Good size at 6'3", has a good swing overall, you know, just needs to tap into the power a little bit more. You know, maybe they can unlock some of that there, but you're getting a good athlete, a guy that can easily be an everyday center fielder. Definitely keep your eye on him. But in the end, I just really like this Reds draft. I think it was just a solid draft overall. You got some good pitching. You got some good upside with some bats here. Overall, I like it. I liked a lot of these draft classes, but let me know what you think down below in the comments. Which team do you think had the best draft class? Which team do you think won the draft class? Did I leave off any teams? Let me know down below in the comments. But everyone, that's all I got for right now. If you can on the way out, hit that like button for me, subscribe if you're new, and I'll talk to you next time.